Polish President Karol Nawrocki visited on Thursday Air Force troops in Krzesiny, near Poznan in western Poland. According to Associated Press, he thanked them for being part of Wednesday's security mission, which he called a Russian provocation, to test the mechanisms of cooperation within the North Atlantic Alliance and our readiness to respond. In his speech to the troops, he also emphasized the importance of being prepared for all possible scenarios in the future. "I want to lead Poland and Europe to a future without war. This is obvious. But for there to be no war, we must be prepared for war every day," Nawrocki said.
Ta rosyjska prowokacja, jak panowie generałowie i nasi żołnierze doskonale zdają sobie sprawę, była niczym więcej tylko próbą testowania naszych zdolności. Zdolności reagowania, także polityków, prezydenta Polski, premiera Polski, na to, co się dzieje we współczesności, co się dzieje dzisiaj. Była próbą i prowokacją sprawdzenia mechanizmu działania w ramach Sojuszu Północnoatlantyckiego i naszej gotowości do reakcji. I za to chcę wam, panie generale, szanowni panowie generałowie, a przede wszystkim wy, drodzy wspaniali żołnierze, podziękować, bo wszystkie te testy zdaliśmy. Ja chcę, drodzy państwo, prowadzić Polskę i Europę do przyszłości bez wojny. To jest rzecz oczywista, ale aby wojny nie było, musimy być każdego dnia do wojny przygotowani.
Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk, rallying Polish troops at an air base in the central city of Lask on Thursday, praised their quick action and that of NATO allied forces from the Netherlands that responded to the barrage of drone incursions a day earlier. According to Associated Press, he alluded to Poland's plans to receive its first F-35 fighter jets from the United States starting in 2026, a first delivery of some of the 32 aircraft expected by 2030 as part of a support package finalized 5 years ago. The jets are aimed to significantly strengthen Poland's national security and its NATO defense capabilities against regional threats. "We will do everything to ensure that our allied obligations, which are so important from our point of view today, are fulfilled by our allies," Tusk said, referring to a great modernization program for Poland's military. "We hope that the Americans will meet the deadlines. We would like the first batch of the F-35s to reach you in May. And so that we can speak of our air power with increasing confidence from month to month, and from year to year. And that Poland is truly safe from the sky." Multiple Russian drones crossed into Poland in what European officials described Wednesday as a deliberate provocation, causing NATO to send fighter jets to shoot them down. A NATO spokesman said it was the first time the alliance confronted a potential threat in its airspace.
Od wczoraj już nikt nie może mieć wątpliwości, że bez was Polska byłaby bezbronna. I dlatego bardzo nisko się kłaniam w imieniu wszystkich Polek i Polaków, szczególnie tym, którzy wczoraj byli w tej akcji, ale także tym wszystkim, którzy będą też w przyszłości niezbędni, aby Polacy mogli się czuć w swoich domach bezpiecznie. Chociaż tego poczucia bezpieczeństwa nikt nam nie da za darmo i wiadomo, że w jakich czasach żyjemy. Chcę wam też przekazać słowa takiej najszczerszych gratulacji od premierów, prezydentów europejskich, z którymi wczoraj rozmawiałem, i oni wszyscy mają świadomość, że wasze działania i waszych kolegów, w tym przypadku z Holandii, ale generalnie współpraca sojusznicza, to wszystko ma znaczenie nie tylko dla Polski. Ta lekcja z wczorajszej nocy powinna być bardzo mocnym argumentem dla was, na waszą rzecz, ale też dla Polski w naszych rozmowach ze wszystkimi sojusznikami. I ja będę robił wszystko, będę stawał na głowie, żeby to, czego potrzebujemy dziś, jutro, pojutrze, nie w perspektywie 8-10 lat, żeby to do Polski trafiło i żebyście także wy dysponowali coraz nowocześniejszym sprzętem, coraz bardziej niezawodnym. Też zrobimy wszystko, aby ten wielki program modernizacji nie zatrzymał się ani na chwilę. Wiemy, że spodziewamy się, taką mamy nadzieję, że Amerykanie wywiążą się z terminów. Chcielibyśmy, żeby w maju pierwsza partia F-35 tutaj do Was dotarła i żebyśmy mogli z miesiąca na miesiąc i z roku na rok z coraz większą pewnością siebie mówić o naszym air power, że rzeczywiście Polska jest od strony nieba bezpieczna.
The fuel crisis is getting worse in the Russian-occupied Donbas territories. Kremlin Z propagandist Anastasia Kashevarova admitted this in her blog. She complained about the acute shortage of fuel in the so-called DPR and LPR. According to her, the situation has reached crisis proportions and is complicating the lives of not only local residents, but also the occupation forces. Gasoline collapse in the DPR and LPR. Huge 2 to 3 hour queues at gas stations. Resellers sell a litre for 200 rubles. A litre of 95th gasoline reaches 90 rubles per litre, or even higher, Kashevarova wrote. She acknowledged that Ukrainian strikes on oil refineries, warehouses and gas stations had significantly undermined Russia's fuel infrastructure. Despite the fact that the regional authorities report that the problem has been eliminated, this is not the case, the propagandist noted. According to her, it is now impossible to fill up a tank. Gasoline remains expensive and the queues at gas stations are not getting any shorter. The situation has become especially acute for the Russian occupation forces. There is no military gasoline either. The military fills up at general gas stations and at their own expense, Kashevarova said. She added that warehouses and gas stations for the military were often destroyed because the occupiers did not change their locations or hide supply routes. In addition, according to her, there are many pro-Ukrainian residents in the occupied territories who actively share with the Ukrainian armed forces the coordinates of fuel facilities of the Russian armed forces. As soon as they brought gasoline, even to a secret gas station, there was immediately a crush of military vehicles and the coordinates were transmitted to the enemy, she complained. Thus, Kashevarova's admission became yet another confirmation that Ukraine's strikes on Russian fuel infrastructure are causing serious damage to the occupiers and directly affecting their combat capability. Recall, Ukrainian drones have brought down the Russian oil market and the gasoline crisis is gaining momentum. The Economist writes that Russian oil refining industry has come under heavy attack from Ukrainian drones. According to experts, in August alone, Ukrainian drones hit more than a dozen oil refineries and oil storage facilities in different regions of Russia. Ukraine reports that in 2025, about 40% of long-range strike targets were refineries. The rest were warehouses and pumping stations. Experts estimate that at least 20% of Russia's refining capacity has been knocked out of action. That's over 1 million barrels of fuel per day, including gasoline, diesel and jet fuel. Particularly critical is the damage to cracking units, which are difficult to replace under current sanctions. The results were not long in coming. Petrol stations across the Russian Federation and in the occupied territories began to close due to a lack of fuel and long queues formed at operating points. The price of wholesale petrol jumped by 54% since the beginning of the year and reached a historical maximum. The authorities were forced to completely stop petrol exports and some regions have already introduced sales rationing. Budget losses are also growing. In the first 7 months of 2025 alone, the deficit amounted to $61.4 billion. According to Sergei Vakulenko of the Carnegie Russia-Eurasia Center, the August attacks were significantly different from previous ones. Their scale was incomparably greater. The former Gazprom Neft strategy director, who left the company after the invasion of Ukraine began, noted that the Ukrainian armed forces are now capable of launching massive swarms of drones that successfully bypass Russian air defenses.